Okay, sticking with our space coverage, one of the big questions that investors looking ahead to the SpaceX IPO will have to answer is which other companies they may turn to for a suitable comparison as they try to sort through what the company is worth. As of now, SpaceX is reportedly targeting a $1.5 trillion valuation. That is, according to Bloomberg. I want to bring on Tim Farrar, president of satellite consulting company TMF Associates, to offer his thoughts. Tim, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks very much.
So, I do want to get into the fundamentals of SpaceX in a second here, but look, data centers in space. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Where do you think this stands?
Well, I think the most interesting thing is how quickly we've pivoted from a story for SpaceX, which has been about launch, and then it's been about satellites for the last decade. Everyone was saying, okay, well, Starlink's going to generate enough revenue to take Elon Musk to Mars, and now we're suddenly talking about data centers instead. And I think that's indicative of the fact that SpaceX has missed its forecast for the last 3 years. I mean, 3 years ago, 2023, we were hearing 8 or 9 billion of revenue. Now we're told it's 7.4 billion. This year, Musk said it's going to be 15.5 billion. Now it looks like they're trying to get to 15 at best. So, yeah, they need a new story. And I think that's what data centers in space do for them.
Well, let's talk about the story that has carried SpaceX so far through its growth. I mean, for people who haven't studied the company in great detail, just walk us through how the company actually makes most of its money right now.
Right. So the company started off obviously in the launch business. It's got very dominant in that. And then about 10 years ago, Musk saw that people were thinking about launching satellites into space to do broadband. And he jumped on that bandwagon. He's been incredibly successful at that. And that's what's driven SpaceX's revenues from $2 or $3 billion 5 years ago to close to $15 billion this year. And that's really surged in popularity. We've now got 8 million people using Starlink's broadband service. They just launched a new direct-to-cell phone service with T-Mobile in the summer, and that's already had over 8 million users in the US and internationally. So people are looking at that as a great success story, but again, it's not been quite as good as they hoped for.
And so Starlink right now makes up most of their revenue. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, Starlink this year is probably going to be around 2/3 of the total revenue. Obviously, that includes both the services that they provide to consumers and a lot of stuff that they're doing for the US government. So they're building a $1.8 billion system for the National Reconnaissance Office. There's talk about them getting into Golden Dome, talk about a MilNet communication system for the DoD. So that is also on top of the sort of consumer and enterprise services, a big driver of their business. But launch, yeah, it's only $3 or $4 billion right now.
And I just want to go back to the launch business because this could become more relevant, I guess, in this AI data center future. But for the launch business, who traditionally has been paying SpaceX to get their satellites in space, whatever they're launching in space?
Right. So, I mean, it's a mixture of government missions. They are launching satellites to the Department of Defense. They're launching astronauts into space for NASA. They're getting funded by NASA for the Artemis program. And of course, they've dominated the commercial launch business. So they've been launching for a lot of other people, including great rivals like Amazon and OneWeb.
So now, as we look ahead to the IPO, I mean, what other public companies are there that play in this market that you might look to as comparable?
Well, I think that's really difficult because what you've got in the space industry is a mixture of legacy players, the Boeings, the Lockheed Martins of this world that really aren't comparable at all in terms of valuation. And then you have a lot of other new space companies that are way, way smaller than SpaceX. And in the main, they're mostly just saying, well, SpaceX is worth 800 billion now, maybe it's worth 1.5 trillion next year. So we ought to be a percentage of that. So it goes that way around. Everyone takes their valuation from SpaceX, not the other way around. And so, yeah, really, you've got to look at Elon Musk's other companies to find any comparison. I mean, that's outside the space industry. But if you can justify that, Tesla's valuation, then maybe you can justify SpaceX's valuation as well. It's about belief in Elon Musk, after all.
So 1.5 trillion. I mean, where do you this number? I mean, it comes from what? It's just Elon Musk setting a price? I mean, is there any fundamental backing behind it?
Well, I mean, the irony of the 800 billion number that we saw last week is that it seems to be a conveniently rounded number for $420.69 a share. So, these
Right.
things tend to have not necessarily a lot of fundamentals behind them. I think it's what they think they can get. And yeah, 100 times this year's revenues seems crazy until you look at what Musk has done with his other companies.
Hmm. Now, if we think about the IPO as a fundraising event, do you think SpaceX needs to go public for the ambitions that it has painted? I mean, we've seen that it's been able to stay private for so long, and we've talked on this show about the private market being at least tappable for the largest companies. Do you think an IPO is a good idea for the company?
Well, I think the reasons why a lot of companies went public in the past has been to give liquidity to employees and investors, and that's not really been necessary because they've been able to do these really large tender offers every 6 months to give their employees liquidity and give them a reason to stay. So that's gone as far as it can perhaps now, and they need some money not just for launching these data centers into space, but also for developing Starship, for going to Mars, and they owe EchoStar about $17 billion in a couple of years' time anyway. I mean, half of that's in equity, but they're going to need some cash for those sorts of things as well. So it's a good time. But at the end of the day, if someone came to Elon Musk tomorrow and said, "I'll give you $10 billion, no strings attached, and you can stay private," he might think that's a better idea than all the problems in the public markets, which we've seen so often with Tesla.
Right, because it doesn't really seem to me like the space sector is necessarily the most predictable market in terms of forecasting revenues and quarterly results that actually give people any kind of confidence about what's coming in the 6 to 9 months to come.
Right, and because the company has fallen short of expectations, while it's private, it's able to, tell these stories about 22 or $24 billion of revenue next year. Everyone will take them seriously because they don't really have a lot of data to analyze to, come up with predictions that have, been true. I mean,
Hmm.
the company has fallen short. It's great being private because you can just select the best possible metrics to give out to investors. And when they're public, you'll see a lot more data and a lot more ability to analyze how the company's actually doing.
Right. Let me ask you one more question here. As I've been thinking about a SpaceX IPO, I've been thinking about the companies that SpaceX may have helped lift in its orbit. I'm thinking about suppliers, people that make the parts for these rockets and stuff like that. And again, looking ahead to an IPO, look, my theory is that, if and when it does go public, I think there's a lot of potential for this to turn into a bit of a meme stock in terms of people just wanting to get in on Musk's latest company. And then I started thinking about, okay, well, if SpaceX IPO goes well, or if the stock ends up surging, right? I mean, are there smaller space companies that then would see an opportunity to then go public? Do you see sort of an orbit of companies here that could follow SpaceX in taking to the public markets?
Well, I think we've already seen a sort of SPAC bubble about 4 years ago, and quite a lot of space companies took advantage of that then. And not all of those have gone super well. Certainly after their IPOs, they fell back a long way. Now, in the last year or 18 months, a lot of them have been inflated on the back of this growing SpaceX valuation. And I think that even in the last couple of weeks, since we saw the news of a potential IPO for SpaceX start to emerge, we've seen some of those share prices increase further. So I think people are looking really at competitors to SpaceX because people's assumption is this can't be a monopoly forever. So what
Hmm.
are the alternatives? And people say, well, okay, maybe this will work, maybe it won't, but maybe it's worth 5% or 10% or 1% of SpaceX's valuation. And so, that gives a lot of attention to those other sort of meme stocks in some cases who are trying to compete with SpaceX, so far pretty unsuccessfully, to be frank.
Great. Well, Tim, I want to thank you for coming on the show once again. It's always a great conversation. We'll talk to you again very soon.